Okay, so first things first, all we need is 1 block of firm tofu. We just need to drain it, and then we're gonna throw it right into a blender to make this tofu pork belly. So now we just need to add some binding ingredients to this, because what we want this tofu to do is not be like normal tofu. We wanna blend this up and make it very meaty. We want it to be able to kind of like shrink and compress when it cooks to give the tofu more of a chew and a bite. So I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of methyl cellulose, along with a tablespoon and a half of arrowroot starch. The arrowroot starch is gonna act like a geller and kind of like an emulsifier, along with the methyl cellulose to kind of like bind things up. It's gonna really kind of give it that meaty, kind of like almost fatty-like feel that pork belly naturally has. And we just need 1 teaspoon of olive oil. So this is a high-powered blender, but we do, to get this to kind of mix up properly, I do just kind of want to just kind of pre-mix it a little bit. Just make sure the methyl cellulose is in there. This is going to be a pretty thick mixture. Once we got that mixed in, just go ahead and run the blender until this is a smooth paste. You're going to probably have to keep working it while you're blending. So at this point, I'm gonna be using a tofu press. This one's Tofu Bud. I'll leave a link in the description below for it. I love this thing. I just got it a few weeks ago, and it's been making me want to really make a lot of tofu stuff, because it really does like press everything down really nice. It comes out really great. And I think you could do this with any tofu press, or even just, I mean, really, you could probably just wrap it in some like parchment paper and press and just like kind of like press it together. I think that would work. You probably don't need a machine. So I'm just gonna take a decent sized piece of parchment paper that's just a little bit bigger than our tofu press. And you could probably use, honestly, just the tofu box. That would probably work really well for this. So I'm just gonna lightly oil the inside of my tofu press. I'm just gonna drop in the plate and then drop in our first piece of parchment paper. And you can see I just made it a little bit bigger so that way it comes up the sides. And we're just gonna take a third of this. We're gonna do this in 3 sections. So I'm gonna take about a third of the blended tofu mixture, drop it down on our piece of parchment paper. Then I'm just gonna use that extra little bit of parchment paper to kind of press this flat. We want a flat layer of this first tofu mixture, or as flat as you can get it. Doesn't have to be perfect. Now this is considered the fat layer of the pork belly. For this next part, we're gonna flavor it up. We're gonna flavor it in 2 batches. We're gonna add flavoring to the first batch, which is gonna be our middle layer, which is like the fatty meat layer combined. And then we're gonna add some extra density to it and some more flavor for the top layer. So for this middle portion, we're gonna do about a teaspoon of beetroot powder. And then I'm just gonna use a vegan pork flavor broth mix. We just need 1 teaspoon of that. You can use vegetable bouillon, onion bouillon, vegan chicken broth mix. Any flavoring here that's gonna give it like a meatiness will help. And because pork's a little sweet, we're just gonna add about a teaspoon of agave. The middle and the top part, we wanna have a little bit more bite and a little bit more chew. So I'm gonna add a tablespoon of chickpea flour. Once we got that mixed in, we're gonna take a third of this mixture and then drop it right into our tofu press. And again, it starts to get a little bit more difficult, but we're just gonna press that in to the tofu press and press the fat layer and that middle layer together. Now we're gonna make this top layer even meatier. We want this to be the most meaty layer out of all of it. To do that, to make it more meatier, I'm gonna add 1 teaspoon of mushroom seasoning, which I'm sadly running out of. I need to go get some more. 1 teaspoon smoked paprika. 1 teaspoon of cocoa powder. And I know it sounds weird, but cocoa powder has a nice, rich, bold flavor. It doesn't taste like chocolate until you add sugar to it. Once it's mixed in with this, it's just gonna make it a lot more rich. It's gonna give it a lot more depth, a lot more like darkness. It's like kind of like coffee almost when there's no sugar added to it. It's just real kind of like, it's almost like the bitter tastes. And this last layer we want to be the bitiest and chewiest. We're gonna add about another ½ tablespoon of chickpea flour. So, and then just like before, go ahead and mix in these ingredients. This is gonna start getting really thick. And once it's all mixed in, go ahead and top that onto the top of your fat layer and your middle meaty layer. Okay, so this looks really great. This is like, I mean, honestly, from the side, it kind of looks like, what's the Neapolitan ice cream a little bit? We're not going for Neapolitan for sure. We're definitely going for pork belly. It will get there, I promise. All we're gonna do is just toss on our top layer of parchment paper, just kind of give it a nice press. It's gonna get pressed down no matter what with our tofu press. If you don't have a tofu press, just make sure you wrap it up really tight in some parchment paper. Maybe press it with some books for just a minute or two just to get everything nice and pressed together. Once you have this all pressed, we're just gonna toss this in the freezer for about a half an hour to an hour. We just wanna make sure, we don't want it to be frozen solid, but we do want it to be very firm. So, you can test it, finger in it and test. Is it frozen enough to where it feels dense to where you can get this out in one block? We've talked about my coffee problems in the past, and I'm always looking for a better solution. And that's why I want to tell you a little bit about today's sponsor, Verb Energy. Verb Energy bars are infused with organic green tea, and each bar has about the same amount of caffeine as an espresso, but without the jitters and crash. That's what I'm looking for. For me, having one of these bars is way better than having that extra cup of coffee. They're super convenient as a midday snack. You can keep them in your pocket, in your pantry, at your desk. You can keep them in the car for the drive when you want to get that little boost of energy. Verb Energy sent me a bunch of their bars. I got blueberry crisp, peppermint mocha, salted peanut butter, double chocolate, vanilla latte, and chocolate chip banana bread. And then my favorite flavor has been the salted peanut butter. They're so good. They're just so good. And they have loads of other flavors like lemon raspberry, coconut chai, and they're always making new flavors. It's pretty awesome. Their flavors are really great. So gang, Verb Energy has this really awesome trial pack where you get to try their top 4 flavors for just the cost of shipping, which happens to be under $1. Can't get a better deal than that. So click the link in the description below to get your trial pack. You are going to love these. Thanks again to Verb Energy for sponsoring today's video. Make sure you click that link and get your trial pack. You are going to love these midday snack energy bars. It's just the way that I use them. You might want to use them in the morning. I don't know. Verb Energy. Thanks again for sponsoring today's video. Okay, so this has been in the freezer. It looks really good. I honestly left it in the freezer a little bit longer than that hour, so it might be a little bit more firm than what I'm suggesting it gets. That's okay. It's not gonna be the end of it if it's too firm. I'm just gonna very carefully take this out of the mold. It's still, even though I left it freeze a little bit longer, it's still a little soft. Softer than what I expected. When I did the test, I only let it freeze for an hour and it really worked. And then all we're gonna do is just peel away this parchment paper and carefully get it into a steamer. Make sure you got your steamer steaming before you start this, because you don't want it to sit out and melt too much. You want it to freeze and kind of hold its shape enough, so that way when you get it in the steamer, it'll hold its shape for a while it firms up. That methyl cellulose is gonna tighten and shrink as it gets hotter. We're gonna leave the bottom piece of parchment paper on and then just lower this right into the steamer. This is gonna be awesome. I'm just gonna get the dry rub ready for this. You're gonna wanna do a little bit of like a seasoning rub on the outside before you sear it. That's really gonna help that impression of pork belly by having that rub on the outside. So I'm just gonna do about a tablespoon of kosher salt with about a tablespoon of brown sugar. And then we're gonna crack in a fresh, I'd say teaspoon or so of black pepper. Then all we're gonna do is just a medium-sized whisk, not the tiny Babish whisk, or whatever whisk you wanna use, and just whisk this dry rub together. Now, in my opinion, you can treat this tofu pork belly just as you would like a pork belly. So if you have like a braise that you wanna do, if you wanna like braise it or broil it, or if there's any sort of seasoning or sauce that you would use for a pork belly, try to use it on this tofu and see how it reacts. This is gonna be pretty firm when it comes out. It's gonna be pretty good. It's gonna have a lot of similar characteristics as pork belly, but there is gonna be some differences. Of course, this is tofu, so it is gonna be more like tofu than pork belly, but we're trying to get a lot of the same flavors and some denser textures, things that you would get with a tofu pork belly. So let's grab the tofu pork belly out of the steamer, and all we're gonna do is just give it some cross slices on the top. That's gonna open it up so that way we can rub in some flavor on the top and the bottom. Now I'm just gonna cut this up. I'm gonna cut it into about 1-inch slabs. I think that's the best for just like what I want. If you were to do like a bao or like a taco, which maybe I'll do like a pork belly taco, I don't know. But if you're gonna do like a bao or whatever you're gonna do, just kind of cut it to the size you want. If you wanted to do bacon, just slice it off very thin. For what we're gonna do, we just want these big chunks of pork belly. I'm gonna slice, I would say about 1 inch thick. I'm gonna throw some oil into a skillet, either a cast iron skillet or non-stick skillet, and then we're just gonna sear these on the top and the bottom until you get a nice crispy top. Look at the way that this is coming together. You wanna allow the tofu to cook on the fatty side, the white side, for just a little bit longer to get that crust, to get that sear in there before flipping over. You also want this to suck up a little bit of that fat. It's okay for this to be a little bit oily. It is pork belly. And then just look at this, baby. Look at this tofu.
That's amazing.
Pork belly.
Yeah, I would never have thought it was tofu.
Yeah. Let's give it a bite. Yeah, it's a process, but
Okay.
I mean, it just looks incredible.
It does look cool.
Yeah, you got a crispy skin. Super crispy skin, do you hear that? Okay, baby, let's give it a bite. I'm gonna, cheers. Pork belly.
It's good.
Yes, unbelievable.
It's meaty. I mean, it
You
doesn't.
don't know pork belly enough to, you're like,
Yeah.
you're like, "It's meaty?
I didn't even eat pork belly.
I know
I ate
you've
meat.
never had pork belly. So yeah, it's meaty, it's salty, it's like has that like cured taste, has a little bit of sweetness to it.
Okay. That definitely tasted like meat.
Yes,
Like,
right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm
yeah,
just,
and that's just like meat fat.
I'm so happy with this one.
So what would you put this in? Would you put this on a sandwich, or would you put this in like a bao bun or something like that?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
I would throw this in a bao. I would throw some like onions on it, maybe like a spicy mayo, like a spicy vegan mayo.
Could you throw it in like a noodle bowl?
Yes.
Like a Vietnamese noodle bowl?
Yeah, it would be awesome in a noodle bowl. You
Okay.
could probably slice it a little thinner and throw it in some like ramen. It would be awesome in ramen.
That's true. Yeah.
But, I mean, the flavors of this are just, I'm so happy. That's it.
Yay.
We need to, we need to like put these in something tonight.
Okay. Maybe we'll make ramen or something.
Oh, yeah, that would be good. Let's make ramen.
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Yay.
Okay, good.